as I've said previously, I've kind of been referred to as a germaphobe over the years, and the reason is I clean and I detail, especially my makeup brushes. So I see a lot of dancers not clean their makeup brushes after use. And if it's your own personal set, everybody has their own deal with that. But especially when you're using creams, it gets caked in there. And this is just a process that should become habit. But we need to make sure that we're kind of doing it right, and we want to make sure that we're able to take care of the bristles on our makeup brushes. Now, there are kind of different extremes. Um, I actually will go through an entire disinfection process and spray down the brushes, have them sit. There is a certain length of time that you disinfect, and then anytime you do that, you have to very, very thoroughly wash them out. So, more often than not, it is actually quite a process to get them clean and sanitized and disinfected and make sure that they are ready to go, especially in the aspect of studio makeup where we portion it out for each individual dancer and make sure that each of those brushes are thoroughly sanitized and disinfected. That's a whole other process. Um, when you're just doing your standard personal makeup, that is what we're going over today. I'm not going to go through the entire disinfecting realm per se, but we are going to touch a little bit on that because you still need to clean up your own stuff too. So in this mix, I have brand specific dish soap because again, if it's good for the environment, then it's safer in this mix. I use hand sanitizer because the glycerin in there will help loosen up some of the caked in cream. I toss in a little bit of baby oil because again, that helps loosen everything up. And then I also mix in alcohol. So that way, that also kind of starts the sanitation process between that and the hand sanitizer. Mind you, this is not like the be all end all because you can't just disinfect or sanitize dirty materials. So you have to clean it out first before you could even disinfect or sanitize. So I mix that and I also heat that up. I toss in a little bit of extremely hot water again. If you're doing that, you have to be really careful not to burn yourself. I don't boil it in this scenario because I am making sure that I'm just loosening the stuff up. If you use too hot of water, you can actually destroy the brushes. So you do have to be really cautious with that. If you boil the water ahead of time and let that cool, that is a different means of also sanitizing the water as well. So we have some of our really nasty brushes here. We are going to toss that in, and I like to make sure that it is mixed in thoroughly. And I will let this sit for a little while, but you'll start to see even after just a few moments here that it starts to loosen up. Now, whether it's cream or if I've used brushes for powder, they all can go into this mix. So my cream makeup gets cleaned every single day. My personal brushes, I will kind of hold out on and I clean them at the end of the week, and all of my personal brushes are sanitized and disinfected and cleaned fairly regularly. It does depend on how frequently I'm doing my makeup. With this, I will also take the little eyebrow brush and comb through the bristles on the makeup brushes. Reason being, this will also help loosen stuff up, make sure that there's nothing else in there. Now, this little container is a much more concentrated version that I start with just to loosen up that stuff at the end of the brushes, like in the bristles and everything. Once that is cleaned up pretty extensively in that mix, I take everything, like even that little eyebrow brush that's soaking in there. After I'm done with that, I actually have a tub that is, its sole purpose is to be used for cleaning out makeup supplies. Just like I also have a scrubber and a toothbrush whose sole purpose in life are to each be cleaning makeup. And the reason is we want to make sure that those bristles are staying intact and they're not rubbing backwards and stuff. And so I take all of this. I will put it in a big bin. I also take those makeup palettes that we used. I will completely clean all of this out with the dish soap and scrub that up, make sure there's no residue in there. And then this all goes into that big bin. That way everything has the grime at least loosened off, because again, you can't really clean or disinfect dirty stuff. So we want to make sure that it's got the residue off. From there, we'll do this mix again. And we'll completely resubmerge everything in that larger bin and scrub it all out, just to make sure that there's nothing else in there. From there, I wash out everything again with dish soap to make sure that the baby oil isn't coating the brushes or the palettes or anything like that. So I go over that with dish soap again. From there, that's usually when I do my disinfecting spray, and I completely saturate everything and let it soak for the designated amount of time. And because the chemical makeup of that, you obviously don't want to be putting that on your face. So that means we have to clean everything again, in which case we'll go back through with the dish soap and all that stuff to make sure that all of the spray disinfectant has been completely washed out. It's quite the process, but again, you want to make sure that you're not carrying germs, especially when you're that close to your eye, you're on your face. Things like different types of staph infections and different bacteria can live in there, and you don't want to be moving that around. So I like to make sure that everything is very well clean, which is why we never double dip in the studio makeup. Everybody gets their own individual items that they need, and we'll even take new pods and set them in the dish in the event new makeup is required. Because in this case, sharing is not caring, and it may seem a little excessive, but you never know what somebody else may have. And before anybody questions, yes, I was like this long before the pandemic, so just throwing that out there. That being said, though, it is quite the process, but at least hopefully the mix to get you going, to loosen everything up, will at least kind of help you out in cleaning in the long run. Eyelashes and like decals, like the sequins we used. It's not uncommon to have to reuse some of these items. And if you have eyelashes that have like glitter spots on them, or glitter at all on them, or rhinestones, this does become a little bit more challenging. Because they're so fragile and small, I will even do my eyelashes in my hand. So I will again use baby oil, because that loosens up the glue that's on your eyelashes. And I will use alcohol and that little mix of everything. I just do it smaller and in the palm of my hand so I can control what's happening. If I'm not doing it in the palm of my hand, I will sometimes put it in a little tub, but honestly, they're my own eyelashes. I'll toss them in my hand, because that way I can control and make sure that they're not being torn apart. You want to make sure that all of the adhesive does come off. Most of that you can peel off before you soak it. This mix, though, takes off the rest of the residue, which is why if you have rhinestones or glitter on your eyelashes, that is likely to come off, because this mix is also good for taking off any kind of adhesive that may be stuck on anything, such as labels. Also good for that too. But you want to make sure that you get the bulk of it off first, and that way you can clean it up nicely. And that when you're done with all of that, you want to make sure that they dry thoroughly. The reason I keep mine in a contact case is to then make sure that they've been cleaned and they go back in there. I have known some dancers to clean up their eyelashes and then actually will toss them in a contact solution as well, just to make sure that there's no like residual proteins in there. So, I mean, whatever works for you. Obviously, you need them dry though when you go to use them, so they can't just be like soaking in there forever. Um, but it does give you another option. Anytime you're doing any of this stuff, again, you have to be really careful because you don't want to be ruining the bristles on the eyelashes. You don't want to be ruining the bristles on your brushes. And so you have to be careful in what you are using on them. The brushes can sometimes also be conditioned with like conditioner. I've also known using baby shampoo is another good way to clean the brushes out, so that way it is another alternative for those that don't want to use the dish soap or they have it on hand, whatever. So you do have a few other options in there for cleaning. Another interestingism is actually vodka can be used for a lot of sanitation purposes because of the alcohol content in it. And obviously, this is an adult thing, so keep that in mind, over 21. But it can also help with cleaning in replacement of using just like your isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol. So again, you have to look at the content and the percentage and all that fun stuff to make sure that you're using like the right grade of that. So hopefully this helps, and I will see you tomorrow.